U.S. senators are very close to reaching a deal on legislation to sanction Russia over its actions on Ukraine, including some measures that may take effect before any invasion, two leading senators said on Sunday. Senators Bob Menendez and James Risch, the chairman and top Republican on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said they hoped to move forward on the bill this week. Keep reading. List of 4 items. List 1 of 4 Ukraine faces enormous military odds against Russia. List 2 of 4 Ukraine and Russia explained in maps and charts. List 3 of 4 Ukraine military escalation would be devastating, writes group. List 4 of 4 Ukraine calls on West to be vigilant and firm in Russia talks. End of list. Meanwhile, the British government will introduce new legislation this week to broaden the scope of sanctions it can apply to Russia in an effort to deter aggression towards Ukraine, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has said. Any company of interest to the Kremlin and the regime in Russia would be able to be targeted, so there will be nowhere to hide for Putin's oligarchs, for Russian companies involved in propping up the Russian state, she said on Sunday. Tensions have soared as Russia has deployed tens of thousands of troops near the Ukrainian border. Russia said on Sunday it wants mutually respectful relations with the United States and denied posing a threat to Ukraine, but accused NATO of wanting to drag Ukraine into the alliance. NATO's chief said the alliance has no plans to deploy combat troops to Ukraine in the event of a Russian invasion. Here are the latest updates. 19 seconds ago, 17:30 GMT, U.S., Russia to face pressure at UN over Ukraine crisis. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations promised that the UN Security Council will press Russia hard in a Monday session to discuss Moscow's massing of troops near Ukraine and rising fears it is planning an invasion. Our voices are unified in calling for the Russians to explain themselves, Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield said of the U.S. and the other council members on ABC's This Week program on Sunday. We're going into the room prepared to listen to them, but we're not going to be distracted by their propaganda. Linda Thomas-Greenfield speaks into a microphone. Linda Thomas-Greenfield said the U.S. will not be distracted by Russian propaganda at Monday's UN Security Council session. File, Greg Nash, poll via Reuters. 30 minutes ago, 1700 hours GMT, Kiev rally participants thank U.S. West for support. Demonstrators rallied in Kiev to show appreciation for Western support amid the potential threat of looming conflict with Russia. Members of the crowd held signs praising the US and UK, who along with other NATO members have begun to supply additional military aid and resources to the country. Rally participant Valentin Zverkanovsky told the Associated Press he was thankful to the US President Joe Biden for his support and everyone else supporting Ukraine. He explained that 40 million of Ukrainians have hope for Biden's really strong attitude and strong international policy. 54 minutes ago, 16:36 GMT, Canada Defence Minister arrives in Kiev. Canadian Defence Minister Anita Anand arrived in the Ukrainian capital for talks with her Ukrainian counterpart, Minister Alexander Polishchuk. The meeting was broadcast by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defence's TV channel, Military TV UA. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government recently announced a military training mission in Ukraine, and the provision of military aid mostly in the form of flak jackets, binoculars and medical kits. 2 hours ago, 15:50 GMT, U.S. Senate close to deal on legislation to sanction Russia. Top U.S. Senate leaders said they are close to reaching bipartisan agreement on a sanctions bill that would crush Russia's economy if it sends troops into Ukraine. Senators Bob Menendez, the Democratic chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, and James Risch, said it was crucial that the United States send a clear message to Russian President Vladimir Putin that any such aggression is unacceptable. I would describe it as that we are on the 1-yard line, Menendez said on CNN's State of the Union, using an American football reference meaning very close to the goal. There is strong bipartisan resolve to support Ukraine and to punish Russia if it invades Ukraine, Menendez said, who appeared with Senator James Risch, the Republican on the Foreign Relations Committee. Asked if an agreement will be reached this week, he said, I believe that we will get there. 3 hours ago, 1500 hours GMT, Basic military training for Kiev volunteers. Members of Ukraine's far-right movement Azov together with the National Corps held military training for volunteers in Kiev to teach them self-defense in case of an attack from Russia. Training under the slogan "Do not panic, get ready" was held at the outskirts of Kiev where hundreds of volunteers had showed up. The training involved tactical maneuvers, as well as basic instructions on how to hold a weapon. Head of Azov Battalion Maxim Zorin told the Associated Press the group was holding training because of the absolute ineffective actions of Ukraine's government. 3 hours ago, 14:34 GMT, Russia demonstrates new fighters in Kaliningrad. Sukhoi Su-35 jets. Sukhoi Su-35 multi-role fighters of the Sokolyi Rossi, Falcons of Russia, aerobatic team fly in formation during a demonstration flight at the MAX 2017 airshow in Zhukovsky, outside Moscow, Russia in 2017. File, Sergei Karpukin, Reuters. Amid tensions with Ukraine and NATO, Russia has launched military drills across multiple fronts, the latest being in the Kaliningrad region. Russian state TV showed the country's new Sukhoi Su-30 SM-2 fighter jets being deployed to the region. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the new multi-purpose fighters have more modern engines and radars compared to previous Su-30 models, and could also bear and extended arsenal of air-to-air and ground-to-air weapons. Speaking to Russian media, Oleg Shevchenko, the head of Flight Security Service at the air base, said the true potential of these fighter jets was still to be discovered. 4 hours ago, 13:55 GMT, NATO calls on Europe to diversify energy supply. Europe needs to diversify its energy supplies, the head of NATO said. The European Union depends on Russia for around a third of its gas supplies, and any interruption would exacerbate an existing energy crisis caused by a shortage. We are concerned about the energy situation in Europe because it demonstrates the vulnerability of being too dependent on one supplier of natural gas, and that's the reason why NATO allies agree that we need to work and focus on diversification of supplies, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said. 4 hours ago, 13:05 GMT, Russia's Lavrov, NATO wants to drag Ukraine into alliance. Russia's foreign minister says that NATO wants to pull Ukraine into the alliance. Russia has long resented NATO's granting membership to countries that were once part of the Soviet Union or were in its sphere of influence as members of the Warsaw Pact. NATO has already come close to Ukraine. They also want to drag this country there, Lavrov said. Although everyone understands that Ukraine is not ready and could make no contribution to strengthening NATO security. Ukraine has sought NATO membership for years, but any prospects of joining appear far off as the country struggles to find political stability and attack corruption. Very unlikely British troops will fight in Ukraine. Truss. It is very unlikely British soldiers would be sent to fight alongside Ukrainian troops in the event of a Russian invasion, the UK's Foreign Secretary said. Liz Truss also told the BBC it was highly likely Russia was looking to invade Ukraine. Asked if there was any scenario in which British troops could be sent to fight in Ukraine, Truss said, "That is very unlikely. This is about making sure that the Ukrainian forces have all the support we can give them." 5 hours ago, 12:54 GMT, Russia wants mutually respectful ties with U.S. Russia has said it wants mutually respectful relations with the U.S. and denied posing a threat to Ukraine. "We want good, equal, mutually respectful relations with the United States, like with every country in the world," Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told Russian TV on Sunday. He added, however, that Russia does not want to remain in a position where our security is infringed daily. Lavrov said NATO's line of defense continues moving eastwards and has come very close to Ukraine, which according to him, is not ready to join NATO.